so much for taking the time to speak with me today. How are you doing?
All good. Thank you for inviting me. It's a
Good.
pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy day, I'm sure. Just to introduce myself briefly and give an update on Airlink's operations to those watching. My name is Lizzy Kniffin. I'm Airlink's Communications Associate. And for the war in Ukraine, our humanitarian response, we've now supported flights for over 200 passengers from 20 of our nonprofit partners. And we've delivered as well over 200 tons of humanitarian cargo of aid, mainly medical supplies. And I'm doing brief calls, checking in with our partners that are on the ground, whether it's in Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, Moldova, Romania. Abril is in Poland right now, just to get an update from them. And when it comes to CADENA, Abril's organization, we've supported 12 flights for your team members with the help of United Airlines and Aeromexico. So we thank both of them. But before you talk a little more in detail about what you're doing on the ground, Abril, feel free to introduce yourself and just say what CADENA does in general as an organization.
Perfect. So first of all, I would like myself. I am the Humanitarian Operations Director for CADENA International. I am based in Mexico, which is the main hub of our organization. And we respond to a humanitarian crisis and disasters all around the world. And I would like to start just saying thank you to Airlink and to Aeromexico and United Airlines, because thanks to the support that you are giving us, we have deployed volunteers from many places around the world, which are now currently responding to this important as any other humanitarian crisis. And we are doing several programs that I would be really happy to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you, Abril. Yeah, so we know that you're providing a lot of psychological support for children at reception centers. You've set up now half of the refugees leaving Ukraine are children, 2 million children refugees. In addition, I believe it's over 2 million that are internally displaced. Yeah, if you could talk about what you're seeing and doing at the reception centers, what type of activities you're providing.
Sure. Since the beginning of the crisis, we were deployed thanks to Airlink, and we realized that the psychological support was a really big gap. Generally, during all the humanitarian crisis and the disasters, this particular cluster is really important and is not that much activated as many other clusters in the humanitarian world. So we realized this was an important need on the field, because this is a really particular crisis where there are people from different backgrounds crossing, being displaced, crossing borders or staying inside Ukraine, but all of these people are suffering emotionally, materially. So this intervention, particularly for children, is extremely important. So we have set up different working groups with professionals and professional volunteers and professional staff who are responding to give psychological support, crisis management. They are working with resilience, particularly with resilience books for children that are translated into Ukraine and Russian. And it is really important that all of these hard emotions are worked during these hard times, because the refugees and the IDPs will make important decisions throughout these days and months that are really difficult for their futures. So it is really important to provide people with tools to help them how to cope better with this situation, which is really, really hard. So we have identified that in the border, there are many crossing inside Poland and many people also going back to Ukraine, and they are not easy decisions. Even with the people that are going back to Ukraine, we have now realized that there are many going back, and the war inside, it's hard to say that it's getting better, but we have realized that there are people that want to go back home. And Of course, the situation that they will face inside will be difficult as well. But even though this is happening, they want to go back because they miss their relatives. They want to check their properties. They want to have this also emotional support from on the other side of the border. And of course, the people that are staying on this side of the border, which is Poland, are settled in different places. There are those who want to stay for a long period of time. There are those who want to go to a different countries and try to find different opportunities. So all of these are difficult situations that need to be a work with professionals, and that's what we are doing here.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So how many children would you say you're seeing now? Since yeah, you said so many are returning and just like the influx going back and forth. How many do you see on a daily basis, like the current amount?
Um, it's hard to say a number, but I would say that crossing and the borders, there are almost like 500 people going back to Ukraine. And also we have seen something really interesting, that is that there are many people from inside Ukraine going into Poland to do their groceries, because the prices inside Ukraine are starting to rise. So it's really hard for them with the wages they to have enough for their families, especially if they have children, if they are taking care of old people. So there are many, you can see many people buying the groceries here, milk, water, fruits, vegetables that are going back. So it's hard to say a number, because you might, if I tell you a high number, you might think that this represents that there are many people coming to Poland, but it is because they are crossing for many different reasons.
Right, right. And when you mentioned groceries, I'm thinking too that having a safe, place for children, so important for them, but then equally for the parents so that they can get rest maybe, go take care of administrative personal details, do groceries. I know many women are taking on multiple jobs right now, so I'm sure just as important for the parents and the guardians as the children. And for the children, what type of activities? Probably like music and reading, and how are you, yeah, occupying the days with them?
Yes, this is a really important question, because all the deployment and the response that you do with children need to be really thought to teach them or work an emotion for them. Because also I know it's really important to play with children, to have music, to have movies, to use the time in many different activities, but these activities need to have a deeper meaning, and you need to work with all of these hard emotions. So we work with a really special book that we designed in our organization, which is called the Resilience Book, which is a methodology where you can work for a long period of time with children in difficult contexts. And you have a lot of games, you do a lot of drawing, you do a lot of talking with the person who is implementing this resilience book. So different skills are developed with the children. And it is the focus of this is to release all of the emotions. So this is also really important for the parents to know how their children are feeling during the different stages of the process.
Yeah, wow, that's really important. You designed a special book, yeah, to help them. Have any children come with their own curriculum from their schools?
Some of them, the families that want to stay for a long period of time in Poland are the ones which we have seen that they bring these school materials for not stopping these curricula. But the majority of them, sadly, there are children who just run all of a sudden. So they hardly have access to food and to their own clothes. So it is not that common that they are bringing their own supplies. At the beginning of the crisis, the people who were living, the majority of them had more opportunities of living because they were in the main cities or had a more privilege in that kind of sense. But right now, the people that we are seeing that are deciding to stay in Poland are those who had a difficult time at deciding leaving their house because they didn't have the opportunity, the money, or they have a lot of children, or they take care of older people. So it's not that easy for them to leave Ukraine. So right now we are seeing a different kind of opportunities locally from the people who are coming. So the children that we are seeing right now have more scarcity in terms of access to education and to school supplies.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Wow. And Abril, you were recently on one of our coordination calls. Our coordination calls are when we bring our partners together that we're supporting for really important information sharing. And you mentioned some alarming, things you're seeing with some NGOs posing to try to help refugees and children, but are actually exploiting and human trafficking. Could you talk a little bit more about what you've noticed with that?
Yes, in all of the disasters and humanitarian crisis, gender-based violence is a serious matter, and all the information that we have read and that many institutions have studied prove that during disasters and crises, the rates increase a lot. So of course, this is not an exception because what we are seeing is that women and our children are alone crossing the border. They don't speak the language. There are many volunteers from everywhere in the world which don't speak their language. So it is really hard. The communication is really hard. And this is a context where security and protection issues are threatened. So since they have this condition of vulnerability because of the crisis, it is really easy for them to be scammed by criminal organizations because they want to accept jobs promising them to have really high salaries. They are promising them houses everywhere in the world. And it's really sad that these organizations are doing these criminal activities because the majority of the people are women and children, and human trafficking is a serious matter everywhere in the world, and we have seen this everywhere. We are responding with refugees in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in Europe. So it is really important that something is done apart from raising the voice that this is happening. More coordination between organizations needs to keep happening, and all the organizations that are deployed here need to have protection knowledge and protection activities, and this is not happening. So these are the consequences of not working with as a whole system, the governments, the international organizations, the local organizations, and it's really worrying because we are witnessing it every day.
Thank you for explaining that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, like you said, more coordination needs to be happening. I know Human Rights Watch is really calling on local authorities to do something, and that it's especially becoming troublesome in Poland. They looked at 5 refugee reception centers and very limited, if none, safeguards and protocols were in place to screen people who might have been affected. So yeah, difficult. But Abril, before we close, you mentioned some of your other programs in America, Asia, etc. Would you like just to touch on another program and what you're doing maybe there?
Yes, As I told you, these psychosocial activities and the medical aspect also of the refugee crisis is a gap in many places around the world. So we have developed a program that it's actually thanks to a deployment we did a couple of years ago, thanks to Airlink support. We were responding in the border between Colombia and Venezuela to a massive movement of people from Venezuela going to Colombia, and they were setting in a region called Cucuta. So we have realized that there was a lot of lack of access to health because they have a lot of discrimination, and there are a lot of needs. So we decided to build a temporary hospital over there, and right now we are doing this project since 1 year ago, and it is focused, of course, in attending everyone, but particularly women and children. And they have also psychological attention, they have legal orientation, and this is a holistic approach of health, but by not thinking only giving medicines for illnesses, is attending the health cluster, right? So there are many activities designed for children, for women, and of course, explaining them all the opportunities and the institutions that the government is presenting to refer some cases of gender-based violence, which are really common in this kind of humanitarian crisis.
I think that just shows the breadth of CADENA's responses, and to remember that, you know, I mean, just so awful with the amount of Ukrainian refugees, but to remember that there are so many multiple refugee populations all around the world. So thank you, Abril, for, you know, taking the time to speak with me, and we will be continuing to support CADENA's operations with more flights, and, you know, you're all fulfilling such an important gap, like you said, and need. So thanks for taking the time out of your day. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.